Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. The next 10 minutes are inspired by the multiverse and my living room. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the engine. My students and I go off on random tangents quite frequently. It's a total fallacy for most parents that you can get somebody to study something like math or grammar or reading for 2 hours straight, nonstop, and that is the most efficient and effective way to get them to learn something. It's just ridiculous. If you sit in here and you try to study math or grammar for 2 hours straight with no conversation, no stretching, no digressions, you fry. And every student does this. I mean, maybe adults could do it because adults are just different. But if you're dealing with a 16-year-old and you want them to come back willingly and happily and you want them to be absorbing material, you got to stop. You got to stop what you're doing. You got to engage them in some ridiculous conversation for at least a couple minutes, laugh about it, and go back. And one thing I've been going off on lately is the multiverse, right? We're in this multiverse, and again, loosely considered a collection of parallel universes. And it's such a silly thing to say. If you're like, we're in the multiverse, like I'm switching between dimensions. And I'm not talking about some LSD sponsored, experience where you travel and you meet like the aliens and you see what bees see in infrared and stuff. But students always laugh about that. Like, what do you mean? That's silly. Here's the thing. I go through my life, okay, on a daily basis. And like I wake up in the morning, I go to my refrigerator, I immediately get the coffee out, start making coffee, start drinking coffee. And I grab my kids and they're watching TV. I make them food. I go, fine. Then I come to the office. I do work here. I talk to clients. I go see my friends and train with them. If I'm lucky, come home, clean up the house. It is what it is. It's a normal day. But in this day is all kinds of small dramas, right? Like we lost a toy that my son got for his birthday the other day. That's a problem. We don't know where it went. Or one of my sons broke one of his new birthday toys. That's a problem. We got to deal with that. Or, my jiu-jitsu school is struggling because nobody can go work out. That's a problem. I mean, what are we going to do? This is the place. This is our number one place. I don't go to church, but I go to jiu-jitsu, and that for me is really important. And we have all these little things, these little human dramas that pop up. And then occasionally we get larger dramas. Okay, so Nancy Pelosi goes and gets her hair cut in San Francisco at some salon. And this is making the news all over the place. People are all upset about it. And initially you're like, God, what is going on with our leaders in California? Then somebody told me, well, hair salons opened up like the day before. And it's like, well, if hair salons are open, then why are these other businesses closed? I mean, there's all this drama affecting us. And then you get more and more and more intense drama. And it's just a lot. It's a lot at the end of the day to think about. Now, that's my universe. But what we've started doing is we've started absorbing other people's universes too. So we start getting interested in, say, the Brexit and Boris Johnson and his ridiculous hair. Even more ridiculous than our president's, which is kind of funny. So Boris Johnson in England has this absurd hair, and he's liked by some people and just absolutely hated by other people. And he ran on the platform that he would get the Brexit taken care of, win, lose, or draw. And it's this whole big brouhaha. And if you dive into that, if you dive into the backstop, if you dive into the problems in Northern and Southern Ireland and all these things, it creeps me out just thinking about it, because it is a real problem. And you consider the issues that Ireland had with terrorism, it's a really dark thing. And then you get into drama even farther away. You go to, Germany, and you start looking into their social systems. And You start worrying about, like what if Germany kind of economically falls because they've become this pseudo welfare state, and what are we going to do with our supply chains throughout the world, because large pieces of, say, our iPhones are built in Germany. They're very good at very technical, precise manufacturing. And then you go south, right? You go to Mexico. And my dad had purchased a small plot there where his father is buried, and we have family ties there. His sister lives there. And he had to leave. He was there originally, and he had to leave because the cartel rolled into town and I believe shot the ex-mayor of the town. I mean, he's there with his children. I have adopted siblings that are younger. He's there with his 12 and 13-year-old girls. And there are people rolling through town with AK-47s. And the question becomes, okay, well, how is the cartel operating like this? And the answer is, well, because we have illegal drugs. As we have illegal drugs in the United States, the value of those drugs increase for somebody to manufacture them, because just because heroin is illegal and marijuana is illegal in a lot of places, it doesn't mean that people stop using it. So you have to get it from somewhere. And as it's illegal, you start importing it, and it's really expensive, and the more expensive it is, the higher the profit. It's just an absolute train wreck. I mean, think about the illegal alcohol trade. There is no illegal alcohol trade. That ended with prohibition, right? So anybody who wants to make alcohol has to follow a set of rules. Fine. We like regulations. Nobody needs to go blind. But you don't have crime, because the owner of Grey Goose can just legally sue the owner of Kettle One, or Sky Vodka if there's some snafu. They don't need guys with AK-47s. These, in my mind, represent the multiverse. Because my world that I occupy, when I wake up and I make coffee and I go see my boys and we make them pancakes and they watch a little TV, and then I see my friends and I get work done, and there are little dramas in my life, little personal speed bumps and whatnot, and small successes. That's my universe. My whole world could be occupied with just that. I don't need to know about the Brexit. And I know, an informed citizen of the world, maybe you should know about this stuff, fine. But I could literally, if it were like the Wild West, I could spend my whole life in these 5 little, square miles that I exist. That would be my whole world. That's what being a human being used to be. You just had your little tiny world. And now we live trying to dip our feet into these other worlds. I've never even been to England. Why do I know anything about the Brexit? I've been to Mexico only twice for vacation, yet I'm worried about the cartel. I've never been to Germany, but I know bits and pieces about its welfare state from my dear friends who live there currently and have lived there in the past. There are all these issues that I'm now absorbing, because the multiverse attraction is not the attraction of all of the good things. The multiverse attraction is concern. It's worry. It's, hey, you better pay attention to this, because it could affect you. Nobody's saying, hey, they got it right over here. Don't worry about them. They're going to be totally fine. Nobody's worried about Sweden getting all of this stuff right, and hey, they're going to be fine. You're only worried about Sweden, how it relates to you, and how it relates to you negatively. Nobody's worried about people doing really well, maybe spreading all that good stuff throughout the world. But that's the world we're existing in. We're existing in this parallel universe where we look at our phones and we get sucked into these news cycles, and this multiple universe kind of exists. And it's maddening. You see people just freaking out. And this is where you get some activists that are screaming and yelling at the top of their lungs about things happening all over the world. And you're like, what is going on? But if you think about it, you'd go insane too. Everybody would go insane if they tried to absorb all of the multiverses, all of the parallel universes, all of the entirety of the information. Nobody could take that all in their head and not go bananas. And I've been thinking about this a lot. And it's a real problem. I mean, it's not a good thing. But I think there is a solution. And what I look at it as is literally just as simple as me cleaning up my living room at night. Because when I do get to the end of my night, and I've gone through all the drama, and I've gone through all of the hiccups, and I've gone through kids crying and everyone upset and getting there, my wife and I keep our house very orderly. And we clean up our living room always, even though we know the toys and books are going to be on the ground, even though we know the pillows are going to get thrown down again, even though the blankets never stay folded. We clean it up. We clean it up. And I know, as I'm leaving the living room, that my little tiny universe is in order. I know that my little tiny universe is taken care of. And I don't know why, but I can tell you for sure, every night when I do that, I can go to bed worrying less about the world. Because I know my universe is squared away. I know the things that I can affect are taken care of, and I know that I paid attention to things that affected me. So if you find yourself being overwhelmed by the chaos of the multiverse, the chaos of the world, the horrendous things that are happening all over the world, and there are horrendous things, you don't have to ignore them. You don't have to stick your head in the sand. If you want to pay attention, fine. But at some point, you're going to have to bring your eyes to your world. And you're going to have to get your universe put in order. Because at the end of the day, your universe is really the only one you can affect. I'm Matt Todd, and this is the engine that drives me. Go out and crush it.